Yes guys, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name is FPL Nacho, and in this video we are going to be talking about defenders ahead of game week 1. I want to tell you the ones that I think are essential for your teams, the ones that you definitely need on your watch list, but importantly, the ones to avoid. So you're going to want to stick around for all of those in this video, and if you can, make sure to drop a like and smash that subscribe button. We're aiming for 37,000 subscribers before game week 1. I know you guys can do that. So without further ado, that just leaves me to say, let's get into the first defender. So first off, we can't start anywhere else apart from Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is coming in as the most expensive defender in the game at 8 million, 1.5 million more expensive than the likes of Trippier and Andy Robertson. And it definitely has split the community about whether they should invest some money in him or whether to downgrade to a cheaper defender like a 5.5 million in the shape of Shaw, Stones, etc. and spread the funds elsewhere in the team. So we're going to try and discuss here exactly whether you should bring him into your team. So first and foremost, at 8 million, he does need to provide both clean sheets and attacking potential. And looking at the upcoming fixtures for Liverpool, they are very mixed. Away against Chelsea in game week 1, which is a real tough one to predict under new management in Pochettino. Game week 2 is definitely the fixture that we all want a piece of Liverpool, ideally a triple up, but again, very difficult to get there with free transfers. Game week 3 away against Newcastle, followed by Aston Villa in game week 4, whose Unai Emery was fantastic with last season. I'm expecting with the new recruits that they made to be even better this year. So from a clean sheet perspective, I don't think we're necessarily too hopeful from this Liverpool team. We might see a cagier first affair against Chelsea, probably a clean sheet against Bournemouth, but then in game weeks 3 and 4, Liverpool are going to be tested with that defence against those attacks. Now, in terms of attacking returns for Trent Alexander-Arnold, we saw at the back end of last season when they decided to invert him from that right-back role into the box midfield, a different player who was accumulating chance creation, goal potential, and obviously racking up the assists over that period. And you can see his underlying stats and output on the screens here, 11 assists over 37 games, but the majority of those come in once he moved position as that right-sided inverted fullback. Now, the thing that I do need to caveat right now is we don't know whether Klopp is going to actually adopt this formation going into the new season. With the new signings of McAllister and Sabitzer, we still know that Fabinho is going to be sold, Henderson's gone. Is Trent going to take up the role of being the CDM in the team and being the dictator like a quarterback? Or are they going to play him as a right back and invert him into the midfield? I really do think that if we're in a position where he's still inverting from the right back role and having the freedom to be creative, then that makes him an even better FPL option and one that we saw last season. If we were to see him as a fixed midfielder going into this team, then I do think that changes things a little bit, and I really would want to see pre-season clearly to see whether he is going to be more of that quarterback role where he's kind of setting the tempo of games rather than being the one that's actually creating that we saw last season. So although it is a little bit of a question mark regarding Trent, I feel like the safe option is to start with him in your teams. At 8 million, it means that you can come down to any player in the game and then basically spread the funds elsewhere. If you go without Trent and he does hit the ground running from what we saw last season, it's going to be very difficult with your free transfers to get up into the 8 million price bracket of Trent Alexander-Arnold. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I personally have him in my draft and I haven't taken him out yet, but pre-season will definitely dictate the importance of Trent in our teams. So next up, we are moving on to a much cheaper asset in Brighton's Estupinan, coming in at 5 million, and a player that was really the surprise package alongside the actual team in Brighton last season. Estupinan played 35 games, racking up 7 assists, 10 clean sheets for the team, and just proved to be a fantastic option at 4.5 million, and deservedly has had his price rise to 5 million. One would argue it is actually still quite a cheap price for somebody with these opening fixtures. Luton at home in game week 1, Wolves away in game week 2, who simply look like they have no attacking threat whatsoever at the time of recording, and West Ham at home in game week 3. Now, it's worth noting, after game week 4, the fixtures do start to turn for Brighton, but I think when we are looking at our pre-season teams and building for game week 1, I don't want to look too far in the future because we know an early wildcard is such a popular strategy within FPL. I think the first 3 fixtures are very important, and a team like Brighton, who have such compelling fixtures to target, I think it's just a no-brainer to go in on both defensive and attacking options. And I think Estupinan is by far the standout option in this Brighton team at 5 million. Now, right now, he's currently, I believe, the most owned defender or second most owned defender. So if you go without him, you really are going to want to pray that Brighton don't hit the ground running from a clean sheet perspective. But the main reason why I'm really against not going for Estupinan is because he is one of those rare defenders where he offers both clean sheet potential, but importantly, attacking potential. Alongside Trent, I think Estupinan is one of those assets that can quite easily rack up those double-digit hauls. He's very good on the bonus baseline. Therefore, if he was to keep a clean sheet and maybe accumulate an assist along the way, we are looking at a really big double-digit haul. And with home game against Luton, a home game against West Ham, I definitely think the potential is there. And with the favourable price of 5 million, I think he's a very easy player to fit into your team and know that you've got him at least up until game week 4, and then you can make a decision on whether you want to move him out of your teams. But let me know your thoughts on Estupinan in the comments. He's very popular in drafts, and I completely understand why. And I think it'd be taking quite a brave manager to go against Estupinan, and in particular this Brighton team that was so impressive last season. Next up is Man United's Luke Shaw, who again I really think has been favourably priced at 5.5 million. When we compare that to someone like Trippier, who's at 6.5 million, the fact that we can get someone like Luke Shaw 1 million cheaper in arguably a better team with these opening fixtures just shows that FPL has made a few mistakes along the way, and I think this is definitely one in the shape of Luke Shaw. Now, last season, we saw a little bit of a different Luke Shaw from time to time. We saw the left-back version of him, which offered attacker potential and, of course, clean sheet potential. Man United keeping the most clean sheets in the Premier League last season. But we also see him play as a centre-back in the absence of Martinez and Varane. And importantly, when he did play as a centre-back, he was a bonus point magnet, and he really did prove to be a fantastic value pick last season. So I think the versatility, first and foremost, of Luke Shaw makes him such a brilliant option. He can play centre-back, he can play left-back, and he is good on the bonus points in either position. And 4 assists last season, I would say, is actually quite an underwhelming total for him. You can see his expected FPL points last year was 139, and he actually scored 124. So I really do think he's one of those players that has a much higher ceiling than a lot of those out there. And I think we could see a better version of Luke Shaw going into this season. Now, of course, I said about the fixtures, I think there are mixed. Game week 1 at home against Wolves is a fantastic fixture, and it does look like a great clean sheet potential. Away against Tottenham, with the new manager in Ange, who looks quite an exciting manager, I expect goals in that game. But at home against Nottingham Forest in game week 3 is another fixture you would deem clean sheet potential, followed by a tricky away game against Arsenal. So by no means, I don't think a Man United defender is essential because of game weeks 2 and 4 being very difficult away games. But I do think you're going to want a piece of that pie in game week 1 and 3. And I think Luke Shaw is a brilliant entry point into that Man United defence. Now, I want to caveat this by saying that it seems like Onana is going to be signed as the goalkeeper for Man United. A lot of talk about him potentially coming in at 5 million. And if that is the case, I really do think Onana is a consideration we need to make. Right now, I see a lot of drafts out there with managers going for the 5 million option in Ramsdale in goal and Luke Shaw at 5.5 million. So basically investing 10.5 million for an Arsenal defender and a Man United defender. If Onana comes in at 5 million, I personally like the alternative of going for Onana at 5 and Arsenal's Gabriel at 5. You get the defensive coverage of Man United, the defensive coverage of Arsenal at 0.5 million cheaper. And I think where we can make them small savings along the way, it's actually really important to our overall drafts. That could be the difference between you having maybe an Enciso in midfield to a 6.5 million or a 6 million midfielder. So I think we need to keep an eye on the preseason, how that does happen. The passes that Onana does do in his previous teams means he should be good on the bonus baseline. So right now, I think Luke Shaw is not essential, but a very popular and wise pick for your teams. But if Onana enters the frame at 5 million, I would then probably have him above Luke Shaw as the Man United defensive coverage going into game week 1. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be really interested to know if there are other Man United players that you're considering in that defence. Okay, so next up is one of my favourite but most frustrating FPL assets over the years in Reece James. Now, of course, because I am a Chelsea fan, I'm a little bit biased on this one, but it's so frustrating to see Reece James basically underdeliver year in, year out, because we know what a phenomenal player he is. And at the time of recording, he hasn't travelled out to the USA for Chelsea's pre-season yet due to illness. Again, whether it's a knee injury or illness, it doesn't seem like he can stay fit at all. But at 5.5 million, under the new manager in Pochettino, I really do think that this is an underpriced asset in the game. The opening fixtures are brilliant. Ignore game week 1 at home against Liverpool because that could be anything. Game week 2 away against West Ham, followed by Luton and Nottingham Forest at home in game weeks 3 and 4. It really does feel like a lot of FPL managers are going to move towards either Chelsea defenders or the Chelsea attack over that period. And some managers might want to move early in their pre-season squads and try and get slightly ahead of the curve with a Reece James or Ben Chilwell signing, who is equally cheap at 5.5 million. Now you can see Reece James would play 16 games last year, 2 assists. It really was an underwhelming season for him with those knee injuries that he was picking up. However, from the information that we've had so far in Pochettino's training sessions, they look like they are going to be playing a 4-2-3-1 formation, but importantly, the wide men inverting into half spaces, meaning that the fullbacks are expected to bomb on and be a creative force in the final third. We saw that at Tottenham with the likes of Danny Rose and Kyle Walker. And it looks like he's trying to recreate that system at Chelsea. Now, again, it's early doors. We will get games over pre-season to make a bit more of an assumption. But if we are to see Reece James or Ben Chilwell become flying fullbacks, I think game week 3 is the time to bring them into our FPL teams. Now, who you sell at that point is beyond me, because there are some fantastic players that you're owning game week 1 that you won't want to sell because of their fixtures. I'm a little bit scared to start with Reece James. I think he is a wait and see to see if his fitness actually maintains. But if it does, I think at 5.5 million, he is going to make a mockery of his price. And we could see back-to-back double-digit returns in both game weeks 3 and 4. I really think those fixtures do have the opportunity. But right now, I think it's a little bit of a risk going for him in your game week 1 teams. Therefore, I think he's an avoid for now, but definitely one to have on your watch list. Now, one that I think is definitely flying under the radar is Spurs' Pedro Porro, mainly because Spurs don't look too good defensively right now. They've signed a new goalkeeper. Anybody was going to be better than Hugo Lloris, but the centre-back area is still up for debate right now. They have Romero. Yes, they have Romero. They don't really have a recognised left-back right now. They have Ben Davies, and Destiny, who is a new player who's come back off loan. But there is no real structure in their back four right now. The only one we can pretty much guarantee is going to play week in, week out is going to be Pedro Porro at right back. Now, Ange is likely to play a 4-back. I don't think we'll see a 3-back necessarily. So we're not getting the wing back that we saw last season. We are definitely getting a more traditional fullback. But that doesn't mean we are going to be getting a Branislav Ivanovic or something who sits back. This is going to be a player that is definitely going to have the license to bomb forward. And we saw that in Tottenham's opening pre-season fixtures against West Ham. The average position that Pedro Porro was picking up was really advanced, almost in that front three position, which is very exciting for a player that only had 15 games last season, accumulated 3 assists and multiple goals as well. I believe he was the joint top goal scorer for defenders, and he only joined after January. And his expected FPL points there at 65 shows the ceiling that he did have in this season. I think 5 million is a really competitive price. Whether you can squeeze him in alongside a Trent and a Estupinan and a Shaw, that's going to depend on your team structure if you want to go for a back four. But I do think he needs to be in the conversation. My one worry is I don't fancy Spurs for clean sheets. Brentford away, always a tricky fixture, and then Man United, even the likes of Bournemouth away can be a tricky fixture. So I think we have to tread carefully with Pedro Porro. I don't see clean sheets being frequent, so you are basically investing 5 million on a player that could rack up attacking returns, and because of that I'm going to put him on the wait and see list, the same as Reece James, and we can see whether this Spurs team can really hit the ground running, and if they are a fun attacking team, this could be an interesting pick for our FPL teams. Now last up, I want to touch on a very popular player in the game, and that is of course Newcastle's Botman, who came in at 4.5 million and kind of destroyed the perspective of having Trippier in our teams. Trippier being 2 million more expensive than Botman, even though we have no real doubts that Trippier will outscore Botman over the season. For 2 million cheaper, it just feels logical to go for Botman as your Newcastle coverage if you want to at the start of the season. Now, it's worth noting the fixtures for Newcastle are daunting. At home against Villa for game week 1, followed by Man City away, Liverpool at home, and then Brighton away. They don't come much trickier than that. But it's worth noting that Newcastle had a tricky start to the season last year and done quite well. So I think Newcastle, if they can replicate this system and the formula that they had last year, there's no reason why they can't accumulate clean sheets over this period. But for me, as an FPL manager, I want to target fixtures. And when we compare these fixtures to the likes of Chelsea's or even Brighton's, it's very difficult to justify putting Botman in your team. Now, I think the one reason why you would put him in is maybe as part of a rotating defender system. You may look at playing him in game week 1, take him out for the next 3, and then maybe play him in game weeks 4 or 5 with that rotated defender. However, my worry with Botman is because he's quite highly owned right now. I believe he's 30% owned. If we were to get a Pau Torres at 4.5, a Levi Colwell, break out and be the obvious 4.5 million option, I think some managers might make early moves to move away from Botman in game weeks 2 or 3, knowing that the fixtures are still tough for them, and buy the on-trend 4.5 million defender, meaning the price could fall for Botman over that period. Now, again, it is kind of just like assuming things could happen. This isn't going to be guaranteed, but I can see that situation arising, and because of that, I think Botman is in a void right now. I would much rather pick him up at potentially a cheaper price on my early wildcard or as a free transfer in game weeks 5 or 6. I think that's probably the logical move unless you are going for a rotating defender system. Then I think Botman is a pick that you could go for. But right now, he is in a void in my eyes. So guys, that's going to wrap up today's videos on FPL defenders going into game week 1. I really hope it provided some value. If it did, make sure you do drop a like and hit that subscribe button. And importantly, check out the first link in the bio. We have some of the best FPL managers in the world who will be revealing their teams going into game week 1. I am definitely taking a look at them, and you definitely should do so as well. Check out the link first in the bio. So I just leave to say have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.